UFC had an interesting day Tuesday.
Absolutely.
To be honest, still wrapping my mind around it. As much as I want to talk about it right now, I don't, because I'm sure so much more to come out of this. Is any big story like this never the full story? You just never fucking know with our media.
Yeah, it's a tough one, right? Because your immediate reaction wants to be, if you're not a Trump supporter, that this is a tragedy. This is a complete example of the darkness that Trump has brought, and that how he's advocating for violence, and he doesn't care about the democratic process. But at the same time, as this is media bonanza, like people are just feeding off of this event to potentially maybe make it more than it is. So that's kind of like what we're here to talk about. We don't want to get caught in that trap. I mean, I guess we should just kind of start with like what happened from what we know right now. How did it even like get to that point? Because you and Ryan, you always talk about how at these Black Lives Matter protests, you know for a fact that there's some guys in there that are there to provoke people. All it takes is one person for mob mentality.
Mm-hmm. I'll get shit for it, but that's why I feel bad for some of these dumbasses that were in the Capitol. Everyone that went into that building, jail. I think they should have been shot, but let's be a little more realistic. We don't need our military mowing down citizens in the Capitol. Doesn't look too good, as much as I want to see these assholes get what they deserve. And I said the same thing for some Black Lives Matter protests. You act like this piece of shit, you get treated like it. We're all fucking grown-ups here, right? So, like, with these assholes going in there, I understand, like, why you had that big of a force there for Black Lives Matter. I don't think it was needed. I can understand why you thought it was, but you should definitely have that there when for the last 2 months people have been tweeting it. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if there's a congressman on Fox News saying January 6th revolution.
Oh, there were lawmakers that participated in it.
Yeah, there's a guy that had there's a congressman in there with video. Oh, that's where I was going with it. So like there were people in there that I don't think there were people in the Capitol building that I don't think were there for malicious. Like they didn't go there on breaking into the Capitol. Like you said, mob mentality rules. It's still kind of nice to see in those videos, like that one person that's about to get sucker punched. It's like, guys, we have to stop this. And you're like, someone's gonna come and fuck this guy up. It's gonna be sad, but also kind of funny.
Man, I mean, there like you said, there's so many different directions you can go with this. So many different levels of hypocrisy from both sides on this. But at the end of the day, there's a couple things that I take away from it. The easy thing to say is that this is a travesty of violence, right? One of those things is we're looking for a blame, right? Like it's very easy to know. Like any rational person understands what Trump is doing. He's playing a political game that will keep him in power the longest or support himself. And you have people that are very gullible to these claims that believe that they are willing to do anything for this man. So with that being said, the question is did Trump incite this? I think that's where you kind of end up on. And at about 11:50 a.m., Donald Trump addressed crowds of thousands of his supporters, and he had encouraged them to come to Washington on the day of the planned congressional certification of Joe Biden's victory in the election. And in that whole time, he's talking about how the election was stolen from him, yada yada yada. And he said that he would accompany them on the march. So did he say go storm the Capitol? No, not explicitly, but I don't know, man. I'm trying to be level-headed about it.
Yeah. No, you're right there, because we all know the general. Most of the news sites you're gonna read is gonna flat out say Trump incited it. And right off of face value, yes, no doubt about it. He no doubt about it. He had involvement. Now, I recognize I probably have too much of a, let's say, benefit. No, I don't even, benefit of the doubt isn't near the term I'd use for Trump. I'm trying to, I try my best to not see him as a monster that everyone paints him to be. I think he's a fucking buffoon, but I don't think he's Hitler. A buffoon. Hitler was kind of, I don't want to use the word smart, but he had plans.
Very strategic.
Strategical. There we go. Thank you. I don't like calling Hitler smart. It just comes off weird.
Yeah. You're right. Like on face value, absolutely, he incited this, and he has a very long history of sharing information that's not accurate in order to support a lot of these conspiracy theories that fuel these types of people to come to these types of demonstrations. And those people who really truly believe a lot of these conspiracy theories that Trump shares, like QAnon, some of these crazy theories about the election, those are the people that are most likely to do something crazy, like being the first people to incite mob mentality, like storming the Capitol and pushing the barricades. These people are very passionate about these conspiracy theories.
The people, like the guy in Pelosi's office, different level of, let's say, a 90-year-old grandma that was in that crowd that walked through the Capitol doors. Like, two different, I don't even know the word I want to use there, intentions. The grandma there, like, I don't probably agree with her politically, but I don't see the protest in itself out there as being bad. I don't agree with it. Even like, some of the Republicans voting against it, I can understand it depending on this. The only one I somewhat heard that maybe I can give a little leeway to is Pennsylvania, just because they changed voting laws. From what I understand, like not through legislation but through government orders, which there's a case to be heard there if that's true, but that's not going to overturn the election, and that's what Tuesday was about. People weren't there about a state issue or election issues per se. Like they weren't there about local problems. They were there because their fucking orangutan in command lost. And for 4 years, they got the laugh about being the winners. And boy,
Snowflakes.
I didn't win because Biden won. So for 8 years straight, still losing. Still feels nice to see those people lose.
Damn snowflakes being soft.
Oh man, we're all snowflakes.
We are.
Yes, we're
And
getting about people charging our capital.
One of the reasons we are being level-headed about this is also trying to be, at least, is like, for example, you brought up this idea of there were people in Congress that were planning to not certify certain state results, and you sort of called me out on this, where the headlines made it seem that the Republicans were going to overturn the election or not be guardians of the peaceful transition of presidency or power, but really yes,
Definitely are.
those big MAGA Trump supporters from random ass places. Yes.
I feel like it's more so congressmen than senators, though.
Definitely because because there's more congressmen, obviously, they come from these random ass towns and
Right?
are represented.
Like a Senate, you have to deal with the whole state's opinion. When you're a rep, you have to deal with your one racist county.
Exactly. So as you were saying, there were some crazy fucking Republican congressmen and women that were planning to decertify this just because they're such big supporters of Trump. But there were some congressmen that were raising some valid concerns about election irregularities in certain states, as you mentioned, Pennsylvania and Arizona.
Headline news, because if there's a time to listen to a Republican, that was it. They're talking about fixing our like maybe their solution ain't the right solution, but just like Bernie Sanders, they got the problem right. They diagnosed it right. Listen to them.
And it's very easy to send a tweet and be like, "Oh, they're ruining the democratic process." And maybe if the election was closer in terms of electoral votes, that'd be a valid thing to raise. But if they decided to decertify a Pennsylvania, that would not overturn the election anyway. And it's not unprecedented for Congress to do that. That's another thing too. It is not
That's why it's a thing on January 6th. Like 4 years ago on January 6th, how they guys, we didn't do better. Well, sorry, we did much better. After we did much better. But we're no, we're not better. Just because we're not that bad, we're not better.
Right. And so we want to call it how it is, right? Like the violence that happened and the looting, like it should be like 5 people lost their lives, including one Capitol police officer. We're not certain how all those people lost their lives. There was looting, like that kind of thing should not happen. And there's no question that they would have, as we've seen, they did not, the police in charge did not treat those protesters the same as they have been treating Black Lives Matter protesters. And that goes also with media from the right, where they have not been treating protesters from movements such as those the same as they've been treating these protesters. Like, are you kidding me? Like, people are storming the Capitol and you're not having that same amount of force initially, as opposed to people are marching and you're shooting them with rubber bullets and tear gas. Now, eventually those tools were utilized in the Capitol, but that initial use of force was not met. But it goes back to, though, it is not unprecedented for protesters to be in the Capitol, and it's also not unprecedented for certain states to have their election results potentially be decertified. It's important to put those two things into mind because, as you're saying, we're in a place now where everything is so amplified and magnified, every little thing, and it blows things out of proportion. Now, this event is not blown out of proportion, but certain aspects might be. We just want to be careful with that. Or I'm just full of shit.
Well, all of those are true.
At the end of the day, you have a president who is inciting this, whether it's overtly or discreetly. So measures should be. I've talked about this on numerous occasions. If you've read the Mueller report, if you read anything into Ukraine, he has had a long history of this abuse of power. And the fact that people would even impeach him on this, as opposed to the other stuff where he was actually abusing his president. It's weird to me that this is the final where you got a bunch of, crazy people that stormed the Capitol. Like, why is that? Like, if this didn't happen, then he's not impeached. You know what I mean? Like,
no, I get that, and that's why like all these resignations, like because of the because of what's going on now, what happened on Tuesday. You're full of shit.
Absolutely.
Saving your own fucking ass. You're really
But
trying
that's
to
exactly what it is.
betterment of the country with 12 days left. Hey, you're a cabinet member. Maybe you stick those 12 days left, deal with your shithead boss, and maybe help the person coming in to take your job. Teach them what the fuck you're doing. I like usually when you're going into a job, you'll learn. Well, no, I guess that's not true. Sometimes you learn from the old person's job during your 2-week notice.
Yeah.
Work for a shithead company and they don't fill in the spot for a year. Well, someone else will fill it.
No, I agree with you. Like, considering everything else that his administration has done in terms of his abuse of power, it's 100% feels like that. But, at the same time, I get it too, is, these people, probably for the first time that they've been there, truly felt unsafe, right? Like, there were people there that really felt like, because of this mob, might lose their lives, which is justifiably so. Like, you don't know what's going to happen in these situations. Imagine if some of these folks were armed, like they usually are.
They weren't?
I did not see any videos of people being armed, so don't hold me to that on record.
I didn't see any of them that were armed, so I didn't want to say that they were, but it surprised me that. What is DC's gun laws? That's got to be strict.
And absolutely, definitely in DC for sure.
Okay. All right, that makes sense then.
I want to say you definitely can't open carry in DC.
Okay.
Like, to try to talk about this with people here, I've seen some true points, right, where people are comparing this to like the how ironic it is that this is happening in the States, that the States has this imperialistic history of invading countries and then criticizing when situations like these happen in other countries, when it's literally just happened to us, where you have a president who's continuously refusing to accept the election results and then propagating his followers to do something about it. It does seem very communist/dictatorship-esque on that level, 100%. And that's actually the tactic that Maduro in Venezuela would use, a tactic that the guy from Egypt would use. Like, this is a tactic that people in these positions of power do use. So I can see that similarity. And when I'm talking with people here in Jordan about it, I can see, like, I'm like, yeah, you're right. Like, if say there's more people in Congress, we're ready, or we're going to stick with Trump, like say half of Congress did that, maybe this could be a coup d'etat. It really could be, So, like, I don't want to overhype things, but at the same time, you know what? What if there were more Congress members that were like Trump? Trump was elected. There sure as hell can be congressmen that also elected who have those similar beliefs or lack of respect for the democratic electoral process,
Well, I hate to go down a rabbit hole, but rabbit holes aren't good for a podcast because you can say a lot of dumb shit when you're trying to put out your thoughts. Know anything about YouTube and Spotify? It's not the place to air out your thoughts.
Always, man.
Anyways, isn't Trump such a great president? Oh, that's me airing out my thoughts again. Sorry.
That's a tough one, man. I mean, you can go so many ways with this. You can even try to over-explain it when really this was just protesters that were there, that they were mad that Trump lost, and shit got a little bit out of hand, and you had some people that decided to seize the Capitol because this is the revolution, they're stealing our freedom, they're stealing our government from us, blah, 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 blah. And shit just got out of hand. And Capitol Police, like, it's easy to say, like, how did that happen? But
DC police wasn't backed up.
Yeah.
You know how conspiratorial my mind can be. I'm going nuts over here thinking of all the different things that maliciously was done.
Yeah.
How the fuck do you not know there's gonna be a big crowd there?
Especially on that day.
On that day, they've been talking about this since November, January 6th. Trump has had fucking rallies talking about this day. How do you not know about this fucking day?
You're right. Like you have to think with all these conspiracy theories out there, people, I mean, the same thing happened in Michigan. We had a podcast talking about the militia group planning to kidnap the governor. I mean, after that, you would think they would take this potential threat seriously. You know what I mean?
Right, like, you know, I see it all the time on Facebook, and I want to shoot it down that like it's the reason like white domestic terrorists get away is because they're white. Like they'll call on them and they'll do shit. It's like it's not. It's about a bomb, saying that food was a bomb, and the guy fucking watched for a year.
Absolutely.
I get it, but
There's a lot of truth. No, there's a lot of truth. And let's not forget that they found pipe bombs on that day.
in the those are the parts of the story that's the one I always want to wait like a week or two about.
Fair enough.
You can make anything, you can make stuff look like a suspected pipe bomb. In grade school, we had a big thing about that, like pipe bombs being delivered to people. There were a lot of fakes delivered.
That's true. Absolutely. But I think more so the point I was trying to make, and I don't know when exactly they were found. I don't know if they were found after the siege or slightly before. But if they were found slightly before, you would think that, okay, even if it is a fake, you go on total lockdown. When I used to work for Congress, like we had to go under training to like about any mail package coming into the office, doesn't matter who it's from, you take it like it might be a bomb. Like I swear to God, because the congressmen and women get threats all the time and suspicious packages all the fucking time. So I guess maybe that's why. But Ryan, let me ask you this. How do you feel, and you touched on it a lot, but how do you feel about when people say, and we've talked about it a little bit, about this idea that how the police handled this siege or this protest compared to how they handled BLM? Like, why is there such a drastic difference? It's easy to say that it's racist, but I feel like there's a little bit more to it than just the racism.
I don't know what it is, but maybe I hold our country to a higher standard than maybe it actually is. I don't think it's something as stupid and simple as racism. Maybe it's because I grew up in Chicago and like here, like people I know at least, like all your races is a thing to joke about. Like Mark's a stupid Italian, stupid Polak. I'm a goddamn Mick. Like what the? It's not something you really identify. I don't know how to put it.
Well, I guess it's not necessarily, and this is where like we've talked about this on previous podcasts, when you're trying to differentiate between overt racism, where you have people that deliberately believe that one skin color is better than the other, or when you have institutional racism, where institutions treat color differently, even though the individuals within that institution might not. And that's been a symptom of police force, as we've talked about before, about in African American and brown communities. But when it comes to the Capitol, it's one of the things I think about is, and there's a couple of videos that come out, is people. I don't know. I'm not stating this as fact, But people in those positions of power, say like Capitol Police or police, some of these policemen that uh, are in these positions, are more likely to identify with Trump's politics than say liberal politics, and therefore they are more likely to treat different protesters differently. Like for example, NYPD, when they see BLM, they get fucking pissed because they not all of NYPD, but a lot of NYPD folks are going to be pissed and treat those protesters differently, as opposed to if they see Trump protesters, they identify with them and therefore they're not going to be as aggressive. In fact, they're usually going to be more inviting. Now, that's not overtly racist necessarily, but there are aspects of racism within it and blah, blah, blah. And I feel like it's the same thing here, where you had a lot of officers before the shit got out of hand identifying with these Trump supporters because they're usually Blue Lives Matter folks.
Well, you've got reports going out now that there were people in that. Rest of the episode, we're not calling it protest anymore. We're calling it the fucking mob.
Yeah, mob. You're right.
All right. That there were officers and off-duty policemen and military members flashing their badges to get through. Now,
No way.
Yeah. But that was coming from the Metropolitan Police Department for DC.
Right. Okay.
So I'll give it time to see if that holds any bearing, but is it really surprising?
No, it's not.
I support our police. I'd like to hold them accountable. Everyone needs to be held accountable. Everyone sucks. But fuck. What the fuck, guys?
I hope, I mean, we are seeing people, I mean, and this is why I'm trying to be, like we know people and we've seen so many people get shot by police, and you have people that literally can storm into the fucking Capitol, loot shit, destroy shit, and I know that 4 people died, but really not five people died, and not really face that many repercussions, at least on face value, for what they did in the U.S. Capitol. Like, compared to like some of these BLM movements, man, that truly have been peaceful. Like when you look at it at face value like that, it's like, man, it's like these memes and these folks, these are black communities who are saying, hey, you're able not to use aggressive force against them, but you use it on us for buying a fucking cigarette.
Right, and that argument is made all the time. Like, you got a guy selling cigarettes on a New York City corner, and you got a guy that just killed 20-something people in a Colorado theater. How's the guy that had a fucking arsenal taken alive, and the one selling cigarettes pleading for his life, the one that dies?
Absolutely.
We're not saying cops are all racist. We're just saying you work for a fuck and a little bit of a racist system.
Definitely. Absolutely.
That's gotta be a rough week for the Blue Lives Matter group.
Well, I've seen a lot of
like a big hit in their numbers. Like you see a Blue Lives Matter flag charging at the cops. It's kind of rough day for irony, don't you think?
Yeah, I've seen a lot of my fellow Republican friends / former colleagues stay quiet on certain aspects of this thing. Some of whom are big Trump supporters, but it's yet again, right? Like on the flip side, you have people still defending Trump, pretty prominent people defending Trump by already spreading information that like Antifa was in this or blah, 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 blah.
To be honest, I wouldn't doubt it.
I wouldn't either.
And same with the Black Lives Matter protests. Like, when you have opportunities like this, there are people, I think they're called opportunists, They will come there and cause fucking destruction. It's as old as protesting itself.
Governments have used that tactic all the time, right?
We all read about this in grammar school, people.
Right.
They're using grade school tactics on us, and we're falling for it.
Everybody who looted or destroyed anything in there should be charged accordingly. And I've already seen reports that, you know, these people that were posing for the cameras thinking that nothing would happen to them afterwards. Like, dude, like,
It's almost
like just so stupid, man. Just ridiculous, idiotic to the extreme. Like posing at Pelosi's office, like you have your 10 seconds of glory, and then you're probably gonna go to jail for a long time.
I'd probably do it.
Yeah.
Let's do it. You threw a fucking snowball at a fucking alderman, okay?
Whoa. No, don't do that.
Oh, now we're gonna cut, are we?
I did, you're right. I had my own sort of vandalism back in the day.
Julian rushed the Capitol first.
Damn. When you put it that way.
That's a point we didn't talk about. Like, I, for one, I'm a little mad that I'm against people storming the halls of Congress. I love the idea. Let's fucking get in there, scare the shit out of Congress, they start fucking representing us. We may not be able to send them the money, but we can send them people, scare the shit out of them.